What is the full form of ECG? Option A, electricity cardiac group. Option B, electrocardiogram. Option C, electrocardiogram granules. Option D, electrocardiogram. The correct answer is option D, electrocardiogram. ECG stands for electrocardiogram. ECG is the graphical representation of the electrical activity of the heart during the cardiac cycle. It is measured with the help of a machine called electrocardiograph. To measure ECG, usually how many electrodes are connected to a patient? Option A 1, option B 2, option C 3, option D 4. The correct answer is option C 3. To measure a standard ECG, a patient is connected to the machine with 3 electrical leads, one to each wrist and one to the left ankle. It is continuously monitor heart activity. Which of the following waves represent excitation of the atria? Option A P wave, option B QRS complex, option C T wave, option D ST segment. The correct answer is option A P wave. The P wave represents the electrical excitation of depolarization of the atria, which result to the contraction of both atria. The T wave represents the repolarization of the ventricle. Which of the following represent depolarization of the ventricles? Option A P wave, option B T wave, option C QRS complex, option D PQ interval. The correct answer is option C QRS complex. The QRS complex represents the depolarization of the ventricles, which initiates the ventricular contraction. The contraction starts shortly after Q and marks the beginning of the systole. The end of the T wave marks the end of the systole. Option A true, option B false. The correct answer is option A true. The end of the T wave marks the end of the systole. The T wave represents the return of the ventricles from the excited to normal state, which is also known as repolarization of the ventricles. By counting the number of which of the following waves the heartbeat of a person can be determined? Option A P wave, option B QRS complex, option C ST segment, option D PQ interval. The correct answer is option B QRS complex. By counting the number of QRS complexes that occurs in given period, one can determine the heartbeat rate of individual. Any deviation from the shape of the curve indicates a possible abnormality or a disease. Hence, it is of great clinical significance. Which of the following represents the enlargement of auricles? Option A enlargement of P wave, option B enlargement of QR segment, option C depression of ST segment, option D elevation of ST segment. The correct answer is option A enlargement of P wave. Enlargement of auricle represents by the enlargement of P wave or sometimes lengthening of PQ interval also represents enlargement of auricles by rheumatoid fever. What does the depression of ST segment depict? Option A ischemia, option B hypokalemia, option C myocardial infarction, option D acute heart attack. The correct answer is option A ischemia. The depression of ST segment shows ischemia, which means there is an insufficient blood supply to the heart muscles or the weakening of the heart muscles. Which of the following muscles have longest refractive period? Option A skeletal muscles, option B smooth muscles, option C cardiac muscles, option D facial muscles. The correct answer is option C cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles never show the property of the summation of or tension spasm as the muscles have the longest refractive period. Cardiac muscles also have the largest latent period. Angina pectoris is a symptom of myocardial infarction. Option A true, option B false. The correct answer is option A true. Angina pectoris is a symptom of myocardial infarction. Due to the weakening of the heart muscles, the heart is not able to supply enough blood, which cause severe pain called angina pectoris. If left untreated tissue would be dead, or that will cause myocardial infarction or acute heart attack. What is mean by isovolumetry systole? The option A, the time duration between closing and opening of AV valves. Option B, the time duration between the closing and opening of semilunar valves. Option C, the time duration between the closing of AV valves and opening of semilunar valves. Option D, the time duration between the closing of semilunar valve and the opening of AV valves. The correct answer is option C, the time duration between the closing of atrioventricular valve and the opening of semilunar valves. The time duration between the closing of AV valve and the opening of semilunar valve known as isovolumetry systole. The time duration between the closing of semilunar valves and the opening of AV valves is known as isovolumetry diastole. What is mean by AV block? Option A, impulse not reaching SA node. Option B, impulse not reaching the AV node. Option C, impulse are not reaching Purkinje fibers. Option D, impulse are not generating in the heart. The correct answer is option B, impulse not reaching the AV node. When the impulse is not reaching the AV node, then this is known as AV block. When the impulse is not reaching the Purkinje fibers, then it is called Purkinje block. What is the main symptom of heart failure? Option A, lung congestion. Option B, vomiting. Option C, yellowing of eyes. Option D, pain in the chest. The correct answer is option A, lung congestion. When the heart is not pumping sufficient blood according to the need of the body organ, it then leads to heart failure. Lung congestion is main symptom of heart failure. What is full form of CAD? Option A, coronary artery disease. Option B, carotid artery disorder. Option C, carotid artery disease. Option D, coronary angina disorder. The correct answer is option A, coronary artery disease. CAD refers to coronary artery disease, which is caused by atherosclerosis and arteriosclerosis. Atherosclerosis refers to the deposition of cholesterol, fat, calcium on the wall of coronary arteries, while arteriosclerosis refers to the deposition of calcium, which lead to the hardening of the arteries.